In this video, we're going to continue working with percent problems. In the previous video, we actually converted decimals into percents and fractions into percents. This video, we're actually going to work the opposite directions. We're going to be converting percents to decimals and percents to fractions. So if you recall, we looked at an example like this. We had 0.02, and we wanted to transfer this, we wanted to convert it into a percent. So how did we do that? Well, all we simply did is we moved the decimal 2 spots to the right, and we tacked on a percent sign. So we would have 2%. Well, when we're going the other direction, percents to decimals, you probably guessed it, we're just going to do the exact opposite. What we're going to do is we're going to cancel out the percent sign and move the decimal back 2 places to the left where it was. Okay, so going from decimals to percents, we move the decimal place 2 spots to the right, and going the other direction, percents to decimal, we cancel the percent sign, we just drop it, and move the decimal place back 2 spaces to the left. So we get a 0.02. Let's always be careful to use our placeholders here. So let's look at a few examples of these. Let's say we have 4.5%, and we want to convert this into a decimal. Well, what do? All we do is we simply drop the percent sign and move the decimal place 2 spots to the left. Remember, we need to add our placeholders here when we have significant numbers to the right of the decimal place. A significant number is just an integer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 8, something like that. So this gives us 0.045. That's the decimal equivalent of 4.5%. Let's take a look at another one. Let's say we have 60%. Whenever we have a whole number, we have an understood decimal right here. That's where our decimal is. It's just to the right. And converting to our percent back to a decimal, we just move the decimal place 2 spots to the left and drop the percent sign. So this will give us a 0.6. We don't have to write this 0. We don't have to write this 0 right here because there's no significant numbers to the right of it. So we can actually just write this as 0.6. Okay, let's do a couple more of these for practice just so we can get used to using placeholders. I think you pretty much got it going from percents to decimals. It's just moving the decimal place. Let's say we have 0.8%. Okay, all we simply do is drop the percent sign, move the decimal 2 spots to the left. This will give us 0.008 as a decimal. Let's say we have 125%. Okay, this is a whole number, so our decimal is right here. We move it 2 spots to the left, and we drop our percent sign. So we have 1.25. Oops, excuse me. 1.25. Let's take a look at one more. Let's say we have 33%. 33%. Well, this is a whole number, so our decimal place is right there. We drop the percent sign and move the decimal 2 spots to the left. This will give us a 0.33. And that's our answer. So moving, expressing percents as decimals, we basically drop our percent sign and move it 2 spots to the left, the exact opposite of what we saw in the previous video. Okay, let's move on. Let's say we want to express the following fractions as percents. Let's say we have, we're going in the other direction. When we're expressing fractions as percents, we used a proportion in order to convert it. Well, we're going in the opposite direction. We're expressing percents as fractions. So if we want to express 8% as a fraction, how do we do this? We actually do it the similar way as the previous way. We're going to use a proportion. A proportion looks something like this. X over 1 equals the percent, which in this case will be 8, divided by 100. Okay. Now, we can actually cross multiply and solve this, but I propose that if we could find an easier way that uses less math, then let's do it. How about we do this? How about we drop the percent sign and put our number over 100? Okay? All we simply have is 8 over 100, and we can simplify this to 2 over 25. This is our answer right here. So if we have less math, then we can make less mistakes, is my argument. I like to make math easier. Simple math is pretty fun. So instead of using this proportion formula, why don't we take our percent, we drop the percent sign and just write our number over 100 and simplify. That sounds a lot better to me. So let's say we have 56%. Okay, let's not use our proportion formula. Let's just cancel this percent out and write our number 56 over 100. All we have to do is simplify here, and simplifying is something that we can do. So we can factor out a 4 out of the top and bottom, so we have 14 over 25. And that's all there is to it. Okay, math is all about making things simpler. Let's say we have 64.8%. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to drop the percent sign and write our number over 100. All right, now this one's going to take one more step. We have a decimal up in the numerator, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do, we can simply move this decimal one spot to the right as long as we do the same in the denominator. So this 100 becomes 1,000. This is going to be 648 over 1,000. Okay, if we plugged it into a proportion formula, we'd have some pretty big numbers to deal with. But here, we know how to simplify. We take a common factor out of the top and the bottom, and we keep simplifying until we can't simplify anymore. These are both even, so we can factor a 2 out of both of them. We know that for sure. So let's start with that. We have 324 over 500. And these are also even, so we can factor out 2 out of these. 162 over 250. And these are both even, so we can factor out a 2 out of the top and the bottom again. This gives us 81 over 125, and that's actually our answer in lowest terms. Okay, so simplifying is actually much easier than dealing with these multiplying really large numbers. So doing it this way is actually, you can tell it's much easier when we're working with bigger numbers. So we know how to simplify, and we can start, if we have 2 even numbers, we know that they have a common factor of 2, so we can actually start there and just keep going until we can't factor anymore. That's one good strategy when it comes to simplifying. Let's say we have 11.7%. Okay, all we're going to do, cancel the percent sign and write our number over 100. Now here we have another decimal in the numerator, so let's go ahead and move it one space to the right. Do the same in the denominator. Let's add our 0 as our placeholder. This is going to become 117 over 1,000. 1,000. This is actually our answer in simplest form. Now leaving a fraction over 1,000 instead of 100 is actually perfectly fine. 117 and 1,000 have no common factors, so no simplifying can be done. While it's an ugly looking fraction, this is actually the fraction form of 11.7%. Okay, so don't get excited when you see that. Let's take a look at a nice round number. Let's say 20%. All right, how are we going to do this? We want to transfer this into fraction form. We simply cancel the percent sign and write our number over 100. This becomes 20 over 100. We can cancel these 2 zeros on the end, which gives us 2 over 10, and that simplifies to 1 over 5. And that's all there is to it. Converting percents to fractions is actually very simple, as long as we understand what we're doing. So let's get practice. Let's do one more. Let's say we have 33.33%. Okay, all we do is simply cancel out our percent sign and write our number over 100. Okay, now on this one we have 2 decimal places, so we're going to move the decimal 2 spots to the right, so we have a whole number in the top, and do the same in the denominator, 2 spots to the right. Add our zeros in as our placeholders. This will give us 3,333 over 10,000. Okay, this is actually our answer in lowest terms. You may actually be tempted to write this as 1/3, because it does look like it'll simplify to 1/3, but that would actually not be correct. 1/3 is an exact number, while its decimal representation, 33.33%, is actually what's called truncated. These 3's, it's irrational, so they repeat forever. It repeats indefinitely. This is kind of why I prefer to leave answers and pretty much work with fractions instead of decimals, because A fraction is exact, while a decimal is just an approximation. We can see this because 3,333 and 10,000 have no common factors. So it's really interesting to think about how you can have, in fraction form, you can have an exact number while its decimal representation is just an approximation. It's not exact. So what do we learn here? We're just converting percents to decimals and percents to fractions. When we're doing it with decimals, we simply drop the percent sign and move our decimal 2 places to the left, adding our zeros as our placeholders as when appropriate. So that's pretty much simple and straightforward. When we're converting percents back to fractions, we can use this proportion formula just like we did going in the other direction, but why make life harder? Let's make things simpler. All we do is cancel our percent sign and write our number over 100 and then just simplify. Simplify is something that we already know how to do and is actually much simpler than multiplying large numbers. So do a couple more of these, go over this a few more times so we can get a good hang on it, and I'll see you in the next video.